The foreigner who resides with you must be to you like a native citizen among you. So you must love him as yourself, because you are foreigners in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord, your God. That's that.
Getting biblical?
That's very biblical. That is Leviticus 1934. Yep. 1934. I was literally looking through my saved comments and read it, and I was like, I like this one.
Leviticus has a lot of interesting lines, not all of them great, but there are some that are pretty good.
Like, as an agnostic, I'm gonna choose the good ones, okay? Like, but yeah. I chose that one because I've seen a lot of anti-immigration rhetoric spewed very mainstreamly. Mainstreamly? We're gonna take that word. Yeah, we're gonna make it. It's our word now. Mainstreamly. And it's just been a bit of a, hey, stop being a dick. With that being said, welcome. Welcome to Silly Whales. This is a mental health podcast. I might drop that line, just for the sake. I don't know why. Maybe, who knows? Who knows? This podcast is for everyone, but it might not be for you. We discuss things such as mental health, mental illness, things along our mental health journeys and the world around us, and neurodivergent issues and things in the world. So again, if this isn't for you, that is A-okay. We're not going to hunt you down. I'm far too tired, and Joe is far too tired too. He might not be, but he is to do that,
Yeah, no, I am actually exhausted. After today, I really was exhausted. Yeah.
There we go. How's your week been?
Okay. So, Eid al-Fitr happened. Yay. So Ramadan is over. It's an interesting moment. I'm still not quite used to eating in the middle of the day. That was fun. It happened on Wednesday, I think, or Thursday, yesterday. God. The fact that I'm actually struggling to think of the days properly is really saying something right now. But I was sick initially earlier this week from about Monday to Wednesday, which is all my days off, which is nice. I really wasn't feeling very well. I did shift things slightly. I drank a bit of the liquid during the day and stuff because I felt it necessary, but I largely kept the food fasting, at least, stayed the same. And I knew I was sick, and it wasn't because of the fasting, because as soon as I was even outside of those times when during iftar, once iftar happened, it's like, oh yeah, no, I'm still eating and I'm still not enjoying this that much. Like, I'm still struggling. So yeah. However, I started to clear up on Wednesday, and I decided, or I actually decided this prior. I was thinking about this, especially while sick and stuff, that I would do this. So this has been, the last 2 days have been momentous for me, not particularly momentous as in a general sense, but for me it was, which was, I have decided once Ramadan and Eid al-Fitr is done, that I would stop watching YouTube and try that again. So for today and yesterday, I have not watched I've not gone onto YouTube apart from, I think, once to literally click a link, and that was it. So yeah, it's sort of a big thing, and right now I feel quite good. It's funny because you realize that you notice more of your bodily feelings when you're not stimulated to high heaven, addicted to something, and you're like, oh, I suddenly feel tired more. And part of the reason why I probably feel a bit more tired right now and a bit more and I was yawning earlier, where it's like, oh yeah, no, my actual body is speaking to me more, and it's easier for me to kind of respond to myself a little bit. But I've also I've got back to reading again because I've got to have something to keep my mind at work. Sorry, you were going to say something.
I just yelled out books.
Oh, books. Yeah. Books are definitely a way that I'm going to do it. I think what hit me really hard over the week before Ramadan ended was the kind of realization of, especially when food was not something I could turn to and things like that during lots of periods, that I was like, I cannot, I find myself so taken over by this habit I have that I need to cut it with me straight and just say it's just never going to be good for me. So to give context and a bit of behind the curtain, me and Alex had a conversation. What was it, last week or the week before? I can't quite remember. Where we talked about this more in depth, and just like off the books, we just ended up having this discussion. I think it might have been 2 weeks ago, and
I'm not sure.
and I was talking about how I relate to this because I've tried doing this many times in the past, and one of the things that comes up a lot, one of the things that I've decided essentially is that I kind of need to, I need to sort of rid the habit as opposed to trying to control it, because I find it harder to control than I do to outright kind of remove it. Like I tend to last longer when I actually try doing that versus just trying to keep it to a certain channel or to keep it to very specific kinds of content or to a certain number of hours, or even to try and do it as a reward, because my self-control isn't very good. And beyond that, it's the struggle I have with it as well is that I ultimately kind of want, there's so many things I could be doing that I would like to do, and there's so many ways I could essentially gain what I'm gaining from YouTube that is positive from other places. And so I'm not kind of so I'm almost looking for a sort of revolutionary change within that. And I just thought, well, I remember before Ramadan began, I was talking to Kessis, especially talking about wanting to cut it down. And obviously a bit like our New Year's talk, where it's like, why New Year's being the time where you try and do New Year's resolutions? Because seemingly it's the worst time of year to do it. Because it's the shittiest weather. You've just come out of a hangover from previously. You've just had, in theory, or I shouldn't say in theory, but hopefully, or the idea of it is that you've had a good time, had good celebrations previously. So like, why are you doing it at this moment? It feels like it's the most difficult time to do it. And that was very true during Ramadan. Like, it's going to be a struggle for me with my energy levels being at what they are and having nothing to do, not even food to distract myself, really, that I'm like, okay, well, I was just doing the same thing as before and possibly even more. Like, many, many, many hours we're going into, post. I don't even know if I want to say the number. I'm going to be honest. It's such a high number, but it's a high number. Whatever number you're imagining in your head, it's probably larger than that. I'm just going to say. And probably whatever number you're imagining, the larger number is it might even be bigger than that. So just, keep that in mind when I say this. And so I decided and realized, like, okay, when this is over, when I can, now that when I get past this event and this period, this feels like the right time to do it. The time in which, like, I'm on a high and things are things are going to be getting better, that I can essentially trade one thing for another. Kind of my appreciation of one thing can allow me to gain a bit of energy and motion and movement towards another. So I'm really happy so far with the results. Obviously, it's only day 2. I also should stress that in terms of my life now as it was previously, when I have tried these things in the past, my life is significantly better than it used to be. Like by factors of 10, easily. And it's interesting because it always feels like that. Like when you go through those periods, because I've gone through many of those in my life where I have improved significantly and things have changed. It always they feel like totally different dimensions. They feel like different magnitudes of existence and being. And that really is what it feels like to, if I was to imagine that this is how I am going to be for the rest of my life, and I have actually gotten over this, it's kind of a big deal for me. And if this is how I was going to live my life from now on, that would be a really good thing. I have already I've already ended up being more productive because of it. And to be clear, I have definitely been in moments where I absolutely would have. And in fact, if I hadn't disabled the app, because you can't delete the app, I don't know especially if you're using an Android phone, like I don't know with iPhones, but on Android phones, a lot of them have like kind of Google ties a lot of them. So things like YouTube, for example, are part of the system. You can't you can disable it, but you can't like actually uninstall the app. It's literally
Oh
impossible.
yeah, I was gonna say that. Like, I thought disabling it means that it's like not this it doesn't show up on your phone.
It doesn't show up on my phone. No. So in the past, like when I've done this, I have always disabled it. The biggest issue was that I would then go onto like a browser and then I would use YouTube on that browser, right? So because I can't, it's difficult to bypass that because again, like even I think I even at one point put a thing that to try and stop me using it, and then I just bypassed it and used it anyway. So as I say, it's not like all of the things I'm doing are things I've already done in the past. The difference is it's just I'm in a very different space now for it. So I'm using a lot of different like short-term effects as well as the long-term effect of my life to try and make this a more significant change. It's and also the experience of having done it over and over and over again makes it easier for me. I think the big thing, however, like the truly big thing was that moment in my head where I said, yeah, Joe, you like at this point, you can't deny that there is no long-term positive from this. Like again, short-term positives we can talk about. And the big thing I talked about with you was how the struggle I always have when I try these things is it's the temptation or whatever, or the mind wanting to retreat back to this state that it tries to justify itself, like it's very in the way that psychologically we try to justify everything we do, that it where it looks to like, oh, but look at the things you're missing, the good things you're missing, the things that actually kind of, or in the past, the things that I've gained that I genuinely believe have made me a better person. You're going to miss out on those and they're not going to be there when you get, if you're leaving it and stuff like that. And it becomes this self-fulfilling, self-justifying thing in much the way that all sort of addiction tends to psychologically see, like, the thought patterns and things like that tend to be quite similar from what I understand, where, a bit like having alcohol like consistently and then being like, oh, well, you've only been using alcohol all your life, so you're kind of dependent on alcohol socially, for example. And then it's like, oh, but you won't be as good or strong socially now if you don't drink alcohol. Like all of the ways in which like things have kind of in which your dependency now becomes a justification for its prolonged existence. And I have, and it was kind of me recognizing truly and me really genuinely saying at this, like now having had this happen over and over again and me trying to do this now, me deciding that this is a good point to do it, and me feeling quite a lot of sort of sentimental or spiritual, I guess, significance to this specific moment of doing it. And the fact that I've moved and this is a new era of my life. Like there's so many things. The fact that I want to get so much done so soon and I need that time and everything. It's really like, again, all of these different factors, all of these supporting factors are helping me. And at this moment, I should say I'm not struggling. Again, moments where I go on my phone and I would scroll down all the way to the bottom because that's where YouTube is, right? And I scroll down all the way to the bottom and then I find it's not there. And I'm like, oh yeah, right, I'm not meant to use YouTube. And if that wasn't possible, then I could have easily clicked on it, then had the moment where I said I shouldn't use it, but then it's in front, right? Whereas there's a lot more of a delay now between me doing it. So again, it's not a truly significant moment because it would, until I reach a week or something like that, I don't think I can really feel like truly sort of as if something has been conquered or as if I have truly begun a sort of a road to some kind of change and healing, you could even argue. So I don't know how to express that while I on one hand see this moment as very important for me, that I also recognize for myself that it's not got the victory is really not there, right? Quite at this moment. So it's an odd feeling. It's an odd mixtured feeling. but me being more productive recently, like me having done a lot more, and me kind of, genuinely remembering like to do things that I wanted to do has really helped me kind of feel motivated, right? In that sense to want to keep this going. So I'm I remember this is a title of a video, but quietly optimistic.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's, and I think compared to that time, I think the difference is that I am genuinely in a very different place even now. I mean, that's incredible, like to even say, but I can even point to an episode in our series, and this has only been, we're in the fourth month, it's been 3 months of this, and I can genuinely point to an area in that time period and say, I had a feeling about something, but but I also know my point at the time is very different to now. And just generally the way that I'm feeling is different. Like I have a different sense of it. And yeah, I'm using a lot of different support for myself, both psychologically and from, whether it's talking to you about it. That's actually a little small thing as well. We talked about maybe this becoming that maybe we could end up having a presents episode where I discuss the tribulations or successes I'm having in this, depending on how it goes. Not like multiple episodes, but like an episode where, like, at a certain point where I think maybe there's something to talk about. And
Yeah, sure.
And I genuinely think, because I said to you, like, I can see one of the big things that might help me is this podcast, in being able to have something external that is a very internally motivated thing, but has an external authority that I am applying this internal motivation to. Which, by the way, is very similar to the AA. Like, if you read Alcoholics Anonymous and stuff like that, the whole idea of, like, the whole idea of a God and things like that, generally that is normalized within it. Is, however, for people who don't necessarily have faith and things like that in a God, it's appealing to some kind of authority. Like, that's really what it's about. And the authority tends to be yourself, for example. So a lot of the time, you can see that I've read about this in the past. So there was a whole thing about, like, the authority you can appeal to, or the authority that they recommend appealing to if you don't have a deity, for example, or a religion or a faith, is to like, imagine that your authority and who you're speaking to is, or who you're kind of asking for help and things like that, is the person you want to be, and you're having a conversation about it. And I've genuinely, because my imagination can do this, I have had a conversation with the person who I want to be before. Like, I've imagined that person speaking to me and having a conversation. I will say that person is very, very nice and very understanding.
It's imagining other Joe, who is, as you know already, Ben Tynan from One Fighting Championship, just beating you up and being like, yeah, like, me from the future doesn't like you from the past, elbow, elbow, and just beat you in submission.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, like, I think who I want to become as a person is someone who is truly understanding and truly capable of, like, not just being understanding, but actually being able to care for others, like, someone who is able to listen to someone and know the right thing to say, right? Like, because that's actually something I struggle with. When someone has pain in some way, I find it very difficult to actually say something to help with that. So, like, so that's just a singular element of the person I wish to become. Also, someone who's very wise and all of this, and also someone who has this great self-determination, and is able to kind of make decisions with thought, as opposed to thoughtlessly doing things. Much like how it's the difference between babbling and speaking with your mind, right? I think, like, it's hard to sometimes express what I mean by that, or what that means in and of itself. But there are moments where I can feel myself speaking from a place of thought, where I'm actively thinking properly and speaking. And what I think a lot of people do, and also what I do quite regularly, which is kind of speak automatic, right? And speak, and in moments where I'm like really excited or whatever, just speaking without really thinking. What's coming from you is thought. What's coming from you is something that is you, but it's not something that you're proactive. It's not something that you're actually thinking about as such. It's the idea of being like clever but thoughtless, right? You can be a clever person but thoughtless, and maybe there's an element of notion of like being wise as opposed to knowledgeable could even relate to that sort of notion. So at the moment, this is also I think why there's like a weird why there's this sort of stereotype of like a wise person speaks slowly, or a wise person doesn't say that much when they speak, because it's the idea of they only speak as much as they need to and they think about every word, like that kind of notion. I think there's a reason why that exists in the sort of stereotype or maybe not even stereotype, but the kind of notion of a wise individual. So yeah. And so I've had these moments in the past where I've kind of beseeched myself, so to speak. And while I respect that a lot, and I do kind of still hold to it to a certain extent, there's a certain element of myself that really likes that. And it's the ability to create that individual rather than it just being an abstract actually did kind of fill me with a sense of goodness, in a way that like I can understand someone praying to a deity, for example, doing so. But at the time, it wasn't the big mover, if that makes sense. But I think something practical like this podcast has helped, or is a helpful guide for me, I should say. There's a very long intro part and start to this from myself where it's almost just me talking the entire time, I know. But you asked about my week and I realized it's quite all encompassing of the experience of this week, that this is how I'm feeling
this week
at the moment. No, because I was really sick, I decided not to. Because I was literally just going to get my membership on the day, right? Like when I was going to go, I was going to be like, yep, boom, do my membership and then go. So I didn't waste money. Although I found out actually I wouldn't have wasted money anyway, because it's prorated, if you know what I mean. Like it's in, if I do it in the middle of the month, then it will be half price, basically. It's actually great that they have that system. It's brilliant. But so no, I didn't at that time. I may do it next week. Feels a bit weird if I do it next week, just because I will have it for 1 week since I'm going on holiday after that. Oh no, wait, how many weeks is it? Oh no, it'll be 2 weeks. It will be that week, and yeah, so it'll be 2 weeks of time. So I actually might do it next week, and then that will make sense also because I won't be paying more than I need to. Yeah, no, I probably will do that. So yeah, that's the plan. But I did really want to do it, and I still am motivated to do it. I still really do want to do it. So looking forward to that. I'll be able to give more of an update on that next next week's episode, I suppose. By the way, it's the 12th of April, in case anyone was wondering, just because I mentioned the amount of time we've been doing this for. We've been going for a quarter of a year, which is kind of crazy.
I know, right? Like I don't think like doing things consistently has been a difficulty in my entire life. So like me doing anything for a quarter of anything is quite surprising. So look at us, quarter of a year, we did it.
Yeah, I think I think somehow we might be one out, because a quarter of a year would be 13, right? Because 52, so a quarter of that would be 13. I don't know if this is episode 13 or episode 12. We'll find out. I can't remember.
I'm just episode 10. It's coming out
Yeah.
tomorrow morning. I was gonna then release episode 11 like Sunday morning as well, just because like there's a weird backlog between episodes where we record on a Tuesday and I try and edit to get them out on like a Monday, Tuesday next week. So we have the whole week to then go, hey, look at that, we're back again. But then if this is what happened really. Like if I somewhere for whatever reason miss the editing window, then the episode then sits around for a week and a half. So it's this episode that's going up now. It's episode 10, and that was recorded on the 25th, which is now 2 weeks ago. So it's damn.
Okay. So this is also in theory 12th episode. Okay. So we've missed an episode at some point, or I don't know. Either way.
We definitely missed a week. And I think we've missed effectively 2 weeks because we did presents episodes instead.
Oh, but also, now that I think about it though, there's less weeks in this part of the year because of February and things like that. So we actually might be on track, like, because we might not be at the 13th week yet anyway. This might be the 12th week, so we actually might be doing fine. Don't mind. This is completely unnecessary, but it's just interesting to like we are about a quarter of the way through the year, and it is kind of an interesting moment to realize that like this has been going now. How has your week been? I should ask.
It's a week, nah, it's not been super great. It's been very like pick yourself up, try and go again. I know you fall right back down. And it's been a week of like picking yourself up and then falling down over and over and over again. And like there's like a lot of just generalized, what's the point? Why are we doing any of this? Which is why like recording and editing these episodes have been equally difficult. So the only thing I put any sort of positive time into was playing Football Manager, and like it got it got so bad that I made all of us in Football Manager, as I said before, and like it's a thing I do for football games quite a lot, but I haven't actually done it for a good 5 or 6 years. So I did it this time around, and like I tried to loan myself out. Like we are in the the fifth tier of English football, which is the Vanarama National League, and I made an ultra capitalist team called Red Bull London.
Red Bull London,
which is like based off of the Red Bull conglomerate of football clubs, because they have Red Bull Leipzig and Red Bull Salzburg and Bragantino in Brazil, as well as other teams, New York Red Bulls, and I think a couple of other teams as well. But their whole thing is we're a conglomeracy of energy drinks, and we're going to buy these local football clubs, remove all of their identity, and make them Red Bull whatever they are. So, like in Austria, they took over a team. I want to say it was Lieferig. I don't know. And they effectively like took over that club. Their original kit was purple, and they were like, "Yeah, we're gonna go with red and white because that's a Red Bull color." And it's ultra capitalist. No one really vibes with the Red Bull teams, apart from like the fans who just kind of feel like they have to. So I have a personal hatred for Weldstone because their youth team has beaten my youth team. And like, so I was just like, do you know what? Looks like Weldstone's being bought out and moved to East London. So Red Bull London play in the Red Bull Arena, which is a very fictional stadium that hosts 4,000 people in Hackney. And I'm trying to think, where could this possibly like take place in Hackney? Where could you actually have a football pitch that can hold 4,000 people in Hackney? And I was like, probably nowhere, but we're going to build it. Like, cool. And then we train at Draper's Field, which is literally not like down the road from where I live. I'm like, this is so funny. It's all next to me. Hackney's not in Football Manager, so I had to make Hackney in Football Manager. And I was like, great, this is cool. So like all of us are from Hackney, of course. And then I was playing through the game and it's all going well. And I realized that I'm not good in the game because I have low concentration and I'm a goalkeeper. So there were literally times where I was just getting PTSD flashbacks of goals I've conceded due to my inattentive abilities. Like seeing like, a cross come in, and for some reason, the digital Alex Cupid is walking in the complete opposite direction of the ball, and it's gone in. I was like, this is too much like me. And like, we're all 16, 17 years old. Guys like Ryan, who are older, they're like 18, 19. And I'm just like, I'm letting the team down. I had to sign another goalkeeper.
Amazing.
And then I was like, oh, this goalkeeper's not like that much of an improvement. So I end up signing 2 other goalkeepers. So I'm now number 3 in a club that I made. Like,
raw.
I'm like, great, this is great for my mental health. Like, I've loaned out Kestis, and the reason why I loaned out Kestis is because he wasn't playing as much games as I needed him to, and he's now playing for Lithuania under 21s, which is great, you know? So, like, he's out on loan in, like, Chelmsford City, which is hilarious. Like, Chelmsford City, and you just see, like, you know, the 6'3" Lithuanian guy who's playing for the under 21s. It's great. Like, I'm like, cool. I'm trying to loan myself out, and like all these clubs come back, and we're like, hey, like Malvern FC. I don't even know what Malvern is, or like
That's hilarious.
Like, Yeah,
Morven
like
is right
Kitchen
near.
Town.
Morven is right near where I am.
Amazing. I'll get a job there when I eventually move up. But like Hitchin Town and all these places are like put in bids, and I just turned them down. Digital Me is turning down these clubs. Like, so they're like, well, we want him, but he's not interested in joining. I'm like, why is Digital Me a twat like me? like, you need to play football. Why are you happy to be number three? And I realized when I was playing football as a kid, like even at academy level, I was resigned to the fact that I was going to be like a backup goalkeeper. So I was happy in that position. So digital me is happy. I was like an absolute like just he's never going to make it.
I guess art imitates life, man. That's what we're
Oh
learning.
God. It's for people who don't care about football. Like it's there's no interest at all. This is never. This is not good for you at all. And I can
But I
only
mean,
apologize.
I mean, in a sense, I don't really care about football, but the narratives that come out of it, and I mean, the narratives of the games you play, because we were talking about this from when you were showing us replays and stuff to me and Kessis, like the narratives of the games you play, the kind of games you play always allow you to create characters, and you always create us as characters, and it's just fun hearing about all of the different things that happen. Like it's there's there's a nice element to it. It really reminds me of role playing in general, in a sense. Like it's what role playing's about. But it reminds me of sort of D&D in that aspect, and one of the reasons I like it is just because of that, the aspect of like the stories that you come up with and the little like things that you talk about like afterwards, you know, when everything is done, which you remember for ages, just because it's like you're just creating stories, and stories are fun. And all of the stuff with football, I think like so much of football as a sport, and certainly as a spectator sport, because a lot of people that spectate it don't play it, is all about the idea of these narratives forming, you know, like, and the narratives, you know, which take people away into the nerdiest shit. I mean, football people are nerds, like through and through. I think there's this weird notion that they might not be, but if you talk to anyone who's a football fan, you realize very quickly how nerdy they are. They're just nerdy about a
Oh
very
yeah.
specific thing, like, you know, in the way that most nerds are, and very similar to most nerds, can be really fucking annoying as a result of it.
Oh, 100%.
Like it's the exact same shit. You know, just, you know, a passion makes people, and sometimes it makes people a bit too obsessed, but you know, but either way, like it's been really like it's fun to just hear, and it's comedy gold, because it's just situations that you create, and then even though, like, at the end of the day, that player, that goalkeeper you're talking about could be fucking anyone, but it's just that you named it you, and not really gave them traits like you, but kind of roughly gave it a
Oh
sense
no,
of
like it's the thing.
yourselfness.
This
Like,
year, this time around the Foot Manager, like I made personalities a thing. So like I put your teamwork, like I gave everyone what I thought would be like the best way of giving them personality traits. So some people who have personality traits, like my friend Michael, isn't the most like, you know, enthusiastic person about doing work. So his work rate is fairly low, but he's a really good player. But so in games, like the ball's right in front of him effectively, but he's not going to go to it because his work rate just doesn't allow that to happen. So he has to like develop his work rate. So I'm like, great. Right now he's a liability right here because he's not moving towards like he's not like challenging for things because he doesn't have that aggression or work rate. So I have to send him out alone as well.
yeah,
So like, and then all of a sudden, like he's playing really well and he's getting player of the month because he's in a league where he can just relax a little bit more. But his work rate's improving, so when he comes back, it's be great. That is very similar to how Michael is in real life. No disrespect to Michael. I gave myself like I effectively gave myself ADHD in the game, which is hilarious for all the wrong reasons. Because I
yeah,
figured, you know, if I give myself low concentration, it will improve as I age. By the time I'm 20 years old in the game, it will sort itself out. And I realized, well, I'm 26. If I had to give myself a rating out of 20 for concentration in football, it's still a 6. So, like I, you know, I do everything fine. It's just there will be the very odd moment where I'm like, football's weird, while the ball is like bearing down the goal. And I don't think I've actively like made a mistake from not concentrating, but I've definitely made things very difficult by not concentrating. Like, if that makes sense. I've made things very difficult for myself. I've had to pull off like a really good save, where in reality it was a really simple thing. I just wasn't paying attention to it. But yeah, it was like,
Mhm.
I've made everyone as realistic to them as I can. So yeah, even you, like your teamwork is amazing. Like you're not a good technical player, but because you work for the team, it's incredible. So
Hell
your
yeah.
work rate is high. You like your work rate is high. Like your teamwork is high, and like and then you just keep trucking along. I'm like, this is great. Like like 75th minute, I need a sub. It's Joe time. like just come on, chase every ball, but somehow like even if you don't win it, somehow you're still chasing the person down. I'm like, great. like
Which
this is
is
all we
pretty
need.
accurate.
Yeah.
Like very accurate to how I was in at sport in school.
Like, I just took it from like your personality as well. I'm like, cool. Like, are you an aggressive person? Not really, but you can be in situations if you need to be. Cool. That's easy. 11 aggression. Cool. And then in the game, you've now matured more, so your aggression's like 13, but it's really controlled. I'm like, oh, this is great. Look at that. Like we're growing up. you know, it's
it's
easy.
it's the little things. It's the little
It's the
things
little
that do
things,
it.
man. It's the little things. But
Yeah.
yeah, I could talk about this. I could do a whole podcast episode on just this alone. Um, but like, yeah, like that's been like a bright spark in the week as well, and just seeing different storylines unfold. Like Ryan was a striker in the game. Due to like injuries and other players not performing, he ended up playing in centre mid, and he's like young player of the month in centre mid. I'm like, this is ridiculous, but we'll take it. Um, Meanwhile, outside of the game, everything is collapsing around me, and I'm like, great. Like, um, yeah, it's just yeah, like Muay Thai has been great for that reason. We said it off air, I guess. Like that, I was feeling sharper. I had a lot of back pain today on the 12th of April. Of 12th of April, like during sparring, and I was like, yikes. So I went to work more on defense and things like that. Ended up just like mixing up my way of striking. I'm trying to get used to getting close to people so I can throw like punches in like tighter angles because in the division I might end up fighting in, there'll be guys who are like 6 foot 4, 5, 6, and I need to be like Mike Tyson but bad. So it's a lot of movement, getting inside, hitting people, then getting right back out, and just being comfortable with the idea of getting hit a lot, but with the aim of hurting someone a lot. And it's like, oh, okay. And just, yeah, it was good to be able to diversify and try different methods doing that. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. But when I felt like whenever I was on my way home from somewhere is when the depression properly sets in.
Hmm.
So like my goal is to always be outside, but then that's not sustainable because like I have to do my FA coursework, which I still haven't done. I have to edit these episodes. I have to like um just prepare for stuff in general, you know? So because I'm not home, I'm not dealing with the things I need to deal with, but I'm also not horrifically depressed and like borderline having the worst thoughts ever. So it's like there's it's difficult to balance it all out, but we're here, you know?
You have a laptop, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Have you ever sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't for me, but have you like tried getting some of this stuff like out of the way at like the library or anything like that?
Because my laptop lasts an hour, 20 minutes when it's not plugged in. It's difficult to take it places where there's no plugs. Like I do my
They
work
have plugs
at
there.
work. Yeah, yeah, 'cause I was thinking about that. Because
The
it's a
the
fairly
tables
like,
have plugs because that's what I used to do on occasion.
nah, that's good to know. It's busy still.
It depends what time, but almost I think definitely if you're bringing a laptop, it's you're more likely to run into that. But on average, I don't think it's that bad. It depends on the time of year as well, because lots of tables will be taken up by people who are, revising or and things like that. Like probably right now, I can imagine there being a few people there, but a lot of the a lot of the younger people who are going there probably aren't on their laptops. Like they're either together or they're going there with like a book or something like that. But like some of them will if they're very studious and they're using like online resources. But I mean, if you're going college, for example, I don't think you generally have as many online resources that you're using as you are like textbooks and stuff. You're still using those, so I think you'd be fine. And again,
yeah,
if
like
you go in like the afternoon, you're sorted. Like no one's there in the afternoon. It's always like once you go after the school period, then yeah, maybe.
yeah, like, and I think that's what, because, well, like the school Easter break is coming to an end, and I feel like I've really wasted it. And I was just like, well, this is, I'm trying to find the good side of it, and the good side is I haven't totally wasted it. I went to Muay Thai a lot more than I normally could go. This week we have football returning. I mentioned it a few episodes back, like how me and my friends from secondary school set up this football, like we play football every week and all that stuff. And it's still going 10 plus years now. It's coming back this Tuesday, which is good because it used to be on a Wednesday when I couldn't play because I was coaching, or I'll play for another team on Wednesdays. So now it's on Tuesdays. It is good. I'm technically playing football 2 or 3 times a week. Great. I get to fit Muay Thai in around that as well. Yeah, it just, there's definitely pluses to it, I think. Oh, I've started to take vitamins again. Turns out your boy's anemic,
Oh,
even though it's for years. But like, my diet has been really bad because it's just been like chicken, pasta, a very little veg, very little fruit. So
yeah.
I've just been lacking like vitamins. So I've been drinking Floradix, which is a multivitamin drink. Turns out I can't read. um, uh, so it says to take like 10 milliliters like twice a day. Cool, easy. I always just assume that when you have Floradix, there's a cap, and the cap is like a 30 milliliter cap. So I just take 30 milliliters thinking that's how much to take. I just fill up the cap and take it because like they wouldn't make a cap that size, right? That was my logic and thinking.
I see.
Turns out like it's way more iron than I actually need, but it's not killing me, so I'm gonna keep doing it.
Yeah, I mean, because it's in a liquid, I believe all of them will be water soluble vitamins and minerals, which means that you can't like poison yourself on them unless you got to ridiculously stupid amounts, like that numbers that you're not likely to get in that, even if you drank like, I don't know, 100 milliliters. Don't by any means do that because I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know the full numbers, but generally speaking, you're more the thing if you're more likely to be anemic of some vitamin or whatever, like if you're malnourished of something, but you do get it in your diet, like on occasion or even rarely. Generally speaking, what that it's a water soluble vitamin or mineral, which means that it's something that passes through your body and through your urine and things like that. So a lot of vitamins, for example, that you buy have more than you need, like just straight up, which means that like they'll say like, oh, we have 200% riboflavin or something like that, and it's like, yeah, I don't need all of that. It's more a case of it being easier for your body to absorb as much as it needs, and what it doesn't need, it just will pass through you, basically. Fat soluble vitamins are very different. Things like vitamin A, for example, in theory, you can have too much of it. Most of the time, you won't ever reach that point, but in theory, I think you can suffer from vitamin A poisoning. But again, that's you need to be doing it and continuously doing it. Regardless, I'm glad that you're doing that. I'm glad you're coming to that, because I've had moments in the past, like now I have like a regular certain set of vegetables I eat because there's just certain ones I like using and so on, and I've kind of worked out the ones the ones that I want to use, and I also take vitamin pills as well, so I'm just
You take B12, right?
well, it includes B12. Yeah, it's not. I'm not taking specifically vegan pills or anything like that. It has B12 in it, and it has more than I need of B12. Because yeah, most vitamins you buy will do if you just read it. Most of them do, because B12 is still very useful, basically. And so yeah, like it's so I'm glad to hear that. Like genuinely.
Yeah. So I'm
If
on that.
getting back on that.
I'm back on my Riolo. That's a Pokemon. That's literally a Pokemon. Riolo is a Pokemon.
That is. Isn't that Riolu?
I don't know, but it sounds closer to Pokemon.
Yeah.
See, this is the problem with this. I know the second name of it because it's Rhodesia, but that's also a country.
Well, it's
I
the
tried to
defunct
Google.
name for a country. Yeah.
Yeah. Like this is bad. I don't want to edit this. I don't really want to edit this out. But hey, like,
What is it anyway?
it's a like a I guess it's a vitamin that you can take. It's like a herbal thing. Um, okay, so rhodiola rosea. There we go. It's
Rhodiola
like a
rosea.
herbal, yeah, it's like a herbal thing that you can take. Um, and it's I don't know what they actually call it, but pretty much it helps increase things like energy, your mental performance, like depression, anxiety, and things like that. It's under the same thing as ashwagandha as well, but I was told to not really take ashwagandha because it can have some pretty severe side effects or make you feel a certain way. So I was like, rhodiola. I'm gonna guess that's Riolu. Um,
Yeah, it's like a
yeah,
cactus or a succulent
yeah.
plant.
So
Yeah.
it pretty much like I've taken it for for a good few weeks, and I ran out, and then I bought it again. And I forgot to take it, and I've definitely noticed that um there's a mood change when I'm not taking it, and to when I am taking it. So it'll be good to see if that comes back. I've only been taking it now for a day, really. So hopefully next week when we record again, I'll be like, yeah, things are better. But yeah,
Hmm, fair enough.
trying to think. Well, anything else happening? I don't think per se. Anything's happened like properly in the week. Yeah, just I'm trying to get. Yeah, I'm like back in the gym properly now, and we're getting that going. And uh, just yeah, that's it. You know, we're building. I think.
Yeah. I do have something tomorrow. Tomorrow is the newest manager to the store, who's been around basically as long as I have, like not that much shorter. Probably like came in November or something when I arrived in October, kind of thing. Um, and it's his birthday. And so I think for the first time, I'm going out in Worcester with entirely with a group of people where none of them are people I've known prior to being here. Um, and it's just a little place, a little uh, pub place in that I know of. And um, it's just, and yeah, it's just I don't know what the night's going to turn into. I'm working on Sunday, but I'm working at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so it's not too bad. And there's quite a few people who are working like the Sunday morning, like the next day. So there's limitations on what can really happen, but like the manager's just taken the whole weekend off, which is good for it. And so that will be fun. Like it's going to be an interesting night. I'm literally going to be working, by the way, tomorrow until 1800, 6 o'clock, and then having to go home, get changed, then run off to the pub. I think actually I can say what it is because it doesn't make a difference. I'm doing it tomorrow, and this will come out weeks from now. Alma Tavern or Alma Tavern. I'm not sure you pronounce it. ALMA space Tavern. Which I've never been to before, but apparently it's pretty good from what I've heard. Demi and Kessis, I think, have seen it or been to it, or and at least know the area. So they apparently that whole area has like some good places, and I've been to one nearby it. So yeah, hopefully that'll be a good night. But it is interesting. Like it occurs to me, damn you, car. Like that. Actually, this is the first time. I had opportunities prior, in theory, to go to events outside of Demi and Kessis completely. But I have to say, I think the problem was the way in which that happened was if I engaged with a Facebook group which exists in Worcester, and or for people in Worcester, and if I had done, and I'm in the group, but I have never responded or said anything or gone to any of the events or mentions that they've had. Some of them are things I would be interested in, some things definitely not. But it's just very difficult, I think, in both with what I was dealing with at the time and the fact also that my schedule was so shit for going out, because so many of the events are like, oh, who wants to go out on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, even Thursday is out of the picture a lot of the time for me. Or it's just very difficult. Like if I like a Friday evening, I have the evening available, but I can't do anything I can't really do that much because the next morning I have to be in at 9 o'clock in the morning, at 9 a.m. So, and I'm there for 9 hours, so I'm very limited. Like, because if I go too far, then I'm fucked. And also this will be the first time I've drank in a while because I drank very lightly during Ramadan and only specifically with Kestis, and that was it. So it will be interesting to say the least, and I hope I don't fuck myself up too much. it's going to be expensive, so I'm not going to. I'm going to be pushed or motivated away from drinking that much, I think. But I'll keep that in mind because also I don't. I feel very differently about alcohol now than I used to. Like I'm not so fond of it as I used to be. Not the specifically alcohol itself, but like the feeling of being drunk or doing whatever. I think just because even though I've always had hangovers and pretty bad hangovers compared to most people, to be fair, I used to drink a lot most of the time anyway. That I think I've just had the experience. Like the experience doesn't sit with me the same way as it used to personally. I almost had there was a night where I did go around to Kestis's during Ramadan where he was drinking and I drank one beer or maybe even two, but over the course of like 5-6 hours or something, that's nothing, and I didn't feel anything. And it was just interesting how much fun and enjoyment I had being with someone who was drinking, but I, wasn't, for example. So I think it might become more of a thing. Like I might try to take that more into consideration, that I can enjoy the atmosphere that I can enjoy the social atmosphere even when other people are getting smashed. To be fair, he wasn't smashed, so I don't know how I'm really going to be like. But it's definitely it's not like a social pressure thing. I enjoy drinking because I actually enjoy the taste of alcohol. Like I enjoy most beverages, so I'm actually like, it's kind of a catch-22 weird situation where like I enjoy the thing as well as kind of every other element going on. Like there's a part of me that kind of wishes I could just not get drunk so that I could enjoy the alcohol without the side effects of it, like including hangover. Obviously, if I was getting rid of all of the negative and positive side effects and I just had the taste of the thing, then, I'd kind of be up for that. And the alcohol-free stuff generally isn't right. It doesn't really work, especially the wine. Red wine is bad. Non-alcoholic red wine, I'm just saying it is bad. Everyone
Never
who's
had
tried it
it.
probably knows it.
I've never. I didn't even know that was a thing. Like I drink cider mostly, so then a lot of people are just like, "Oh, it's nothing. It's not barely even alcohol." Hey, man, 4 or 5 pints of a cider can get you drunk. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the funny thing with red wine is when I tried it and then tried red wine, like non-alcoholic red wine and then red wine as normal, I realized that they actually do taste the same, funnily enough, because the way that non-alcoholic red wine tastes is, unsurprisingly, it tastes like grape juice and not like soda grape juice, like actual grape juice in a way. Slightly, I've not had grape juice enough, like proper grape juice, to know to what extent it actually tastes like that. But like the flavor of grape in that way, which is not the same as eating a grape, to be clear, it's a bit different, but it tastes like that. And then when I had actual red wine, I realized I could taste the flavor of red wine behind the alcohol, like as if you remove the alcohol from it as being the same, but then the alcohol changes the flavor. It's almost like if you had cocoa powder and then ate chocolate and then the milk flavor stopped being a part of it. Do you know what I mean? Like you started to taste the actual cocoa part of the chocolate without tasting the milk in it if you're eating milk chocolate. I had that like weird sensation, but then very quickly after that I started tasting red wine as I used to. So yeah, it's not great. It doesn't make it easy as essentially if that's a way of doing it. But I mean, my dad just fucking gave up alcohol, and he hasn't had alcohol. I think maybe 2-3 years. I think he's on his 3rd year now, something like that, or maybe even 4th. I'm not quite sure. Which is quite a big deal because he did drink like most days of the week, for example. So, but he enjoys it anyway. It's just an interesting thing because again, it almost comes back round to the topic I was talking about with my addiction, right? Where there's lots of things where there's some great enjoyment you can get from it, but if it's starting to take control of your life and it affects you in the bad way, then it's not worth the benefits. And there's lots of ways in which I can appreciate alcohol and enjoy it as a drug, but I also don't. There are also lots of negatives naturally to it, and even maybe more especially for me, because there's lots of people I've been with who barely even have hangovers at my age, let alone like regularly get too drunk. Not because I'm a lightweight, but because I drink too much because I have a problem with it, or will end up drinking it in situations where I shouldn't. Like I drink it on nights I shouldn't, and things like that. The and so for them, it's an experience that they have once in a while, and it's good, or it's good for relaxing or something like that. But for me, it just isn't. You know, it doesn't do it doesn't provide the positives often enough, essentially. So even though there are positives, it's overall having a negative effect, and that's, person to person. That's just how it's going to be. And I would say this for any drug in theory, that this is true. So it's not specific to alcohol or specific to any of this. It's just an interesting thing to consider, and also that, like, we live in the UK, we live in England, we live in a boozy fucking country. I work in a store. I sell a lot of alcohol. People buy a lot of alcohol. Today we had really good weather. I don't know if you've been having good weather recently, but we've had like 2 days of really, really nice, sunny, warm weather. Today was even better than yesterday. And
I hate it.
Hmm?
I hate it.
You hate it? I
Yeah,
loved
yeah.
it, man. It's been great. I was made to live in a hot climate, I swear. But I mean, it's really not that bad. I don't know what the actual temperature was, but it felt good. I mean, you also tend to be wearing some of the similar stuff you were wearing previously, so you do tend to be hotter than you actually should be. But it was good, and it really did. It was a nice little thing to add to my, to the process of everything, when I was also trying, in the sense that I'm trying to, like, give up my addiction and stuff. It was kind of nice to have that suddenly appear on me. This sun that actually feels warm when you're in it, even if the wind is blowing by, kind of thing. And the air feels warm and stuff like that. So yeah. But lots of people were buying alcohol. That was the point I was making. Lots of people were buying alcohol, for example. So it's difficult, I think, to make these understandings and decisions about whether something is good or bad for you when it's such a natural part of the way you live. Much in the way that eating a particular kind of food, for example, or whatever, drinking caffeine, for example, it's very normalized. But I realized that it's not good for me when I stopped doing it, and I suddenly felt significantly better because my anxiety decreased significantly. So things like this, where you do have to take the time to yourself, and ultimately a lot of younger people now are realizing this. So there's a lot more, I think, self-determination, decision making in terms of certain drugs and things like that nowadays, compared to what it used to be. It doesn't mean that people aren't taking it out of peer pressure and stuff, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of been, but I think that is a direction that we're heading in, I suppose. Kind of got away from me, sorry, this whole discussion and topic, but it started to hit me, and I just thought it was interesting to what I was saying earlier. Otherwise, I think I'm done. I think the next week is going to be the most interesting for me personally, and I'm looking forward, quote unquote, to it. I'm looking forward to it. We'll see, but I'm hoping. I'm quietly optimistic.
Yeah. Like quietly optimistic might end up becoming like a merchandise thing of ours at some point. And just like a T-shirt that says "quietly optimistic," full stop.
Just with a big whale on it.
Yeah. But before we dip out, like one of the things that I've been like seeing a lot of is this weird feud in the hip hop community between J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar. And I don't even know the details, but the thing about it is pretty much Kendrick said in one of his songs, fuck the big three, like the big three rappers, which is supposedly meant to be Kendrick, Drake, and J. Cole. And he said, it's just me, I'm the best. Pretty much he said that. And like you know you're supposed to take it seriously. But Cole in his like new art rap album stuff then went and he recorded like a diss track on Kendrick, and then Cole walked it back and said, hey, do you know what? I'm sorry. I ain't about this. I don't really want to have all this, so I'm done. Everybody and their uncle have been saying how weak J. Cole is for this and how he shouldn't have done it and what is he doing? He doesn't understand. Blah, blah, blah. Well, I, for one, I'm very happy that J. Cole has done that, because finally, there is a positive moment of masculinity where someone's gone, do you know what? This just ain't worth the hassle. Like, this isn't worth the problems that it could inadvertently cause, and I just ain't about this. because I don't want to get into any sort of long-term like beef with somebody who I respect a decent amount. It's just not worth my time. And I just think that we all need to take that mentality into life, you know? We don't all need to throw punches because somebody else may have thrown one that might not even be a punch anyway. So we can just go, hey, do you know what? Someone's had a possible go at me. Yeah, I let them have it, you know? I don't need revenge. Like, I'll just, if it is what it is what it is. I'm just knowing when it is time to walk away. So, kudos to J. Cole. And to anybody else who's going through any sort of weird conflict between other people, maybe it's time to just walk away.
Yeah.
Maybe it is. Anything else, Joe?
No, you're just making me think about one of my favorite shows of all time when you're talking about this topic, and it just makes me think you'll like it even more when you eventually see it.
This Vinland Saga.
It is indeed.
Of course.
Specifically season 2. I don't have anything to. No, I don't think I have anything more to say. Thank you. I'm just happy to talk to you. Sorry.
You dumb motherfucker. That being said, we're going to take 2 steps to the rear and get out of here. We're in the wind. See ya.
Ta.